Sick World.
All right, buddy. You want to, like...
I mean, if the Facebook video thing will work this time,
listen, you can make fun of my dial-up internet all you want, but it is reliable. Listen, it's reliable. HughesNet is the wave of the future, my friend.
Who is that?
Yeah, knocking on the indoor door of my house. Like, somebody had to have gone through the front door and then an hour knocking on the door of the man cave.
Now you're going to show courtesy after breaking and entering?
Yeah, who's...
Oh, hey, guys. I was in Burbank and just started driving, and I thought, you know what? I'll just shoot across the country and come record an episode of 10 Bell Pod.
Wow, you must smell like shit. You didn't bring any clothes or anything.
It wasn't planned out.
Did you do the Brian Kendrick method and masturbate to keep yourself awake? Just get some protein powder and mix it in a water bottle, and that's how you ended up here?
I will do that on the way home.
Yeah.
Micah, you're in my seat.
Oh, am I? You mean the seat that you haven't been in for months and months? You're in my fucking seat! It's really gotten to you out there. I know.
Welcome to 10 Bell Pod. I'm Nicolessa or Alexander, and I am absolutely perfect. Fucking typo. I am literally inside of the Manning Cave for the first time in a long time with Micah J. Loving.
Yeah, and I'm going to start doing a thing since we totally record earlier than when it's posted. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to give it away. I'm going to give predictions each time by the time you guys listen to this. So by the time you guys listen to this, Adam Sandler will have an Oscar nomination. There it is.
We are also joined by the Carl Gotch of the Essential Boy Scout Knots, the Nicky Six of Trail Mix, the Fatty Arbuckle of Turnbuckles. I'm running out.
Doing actors.
It's the Mad Scout Jake Manning, everybody.
Oh, I like that Nicky Six one because in the High Spots 4, because there's the New Japan 4, which is Chris Jericho, Dean Malenko, Eddie Guerrero, and Chris. We had the High Spots 4, which was me, Mike Lee, Charlie Dreamer, and Caleb Connolly, and we had different narrations of that, and then we also said that we were members of Motley Crue, and of course I'm Nicky Six because I kind of run the show. Mike Lee is Mick Mars because it's the quiet ones you got to worry for, and then Charlie Dreamer of course is Vince Neil because he's got the blonde hair, and then Caleb Connolly is Tommy Lee because he for sure would drive a boat with his dick. That's some Caleb Connolly shit right there.
I'm really glad that we eventually got to the point where I figured out the context because when you said Nicky Six, I didn't know who the fuck that was. So Jake got in the Motley Crue stuff.
It's Nicky Six from Nicky Six, Motley Crue.
I got this now. Don't have to ask.
All right, well, we are kicking off 2020 by discussing a world-renowned country music artist, a man who saved the life of Major League Baseball Hall of Famer Wade Boggs. He gave Shawn Michaels the Heartbreak Kid moniker, and he was one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. It's Mr. Perfect, Curt Hennig.
And according to Bobby Heenan, he had a perfect mane of hair, perfect 20/20 vision, and even perfect teeth, which was weird.
Because he's from Minnesota. That was the weird part. They don't have good water there, which is weird because they got a land of 10,000 lakes.
Here, I know, Nick, you're in a good mood and everything, but I want to see if I'm going to tell you this and then see if it puts you on tilt for the rest of the episode. Okay. All right, this is Mr. Perfect's review of No Holds Barred starring Hulk Hogan. I just saw Hogan's new movie, No Holds Barred. I enjoyed it. It was good. It was very good, but it's not quite perfect. Nick, how do you feel about him kind of slamming it? I mean, it's not perfect, though.
It's a fair criticism. It's not perfect, but it is, top 5-10 movies all time.
Okay, yeah, same.
Curtis Michael Hennig was born March 28th, 1958 in Robbinsdale, Minnesota.
And on this day, God created a math equation, because also born on this day was Olympic gymnast Bart Connor, 2-time gold medalist, and Billboard chart-topping singer Orrin Juice Jones. And if you get a great athlete and a great singer together and combine them, Also born on that same day, Curt fucking Hennig.
See what you did there. Curt was one of 5 kids, with his dad being AWA legend Larry the Axe Hennig and his mom Irene the Battle Axe Hennig. Am I right, fellas?
No, ma'am. Is that what we're fucking doing?
Curt was childhood friends with Ravishing Rick Rude, as we covered in our Rick Rude episode, and both were part of that legendary crew of Minnesota wrestlers that kind of all came up at the same time. Tom Zink, Brady Boone, Nikita Koloff, John North, the Road Warriors, and Barry Darsow. Curt started amateur wrestling around 6 years old and prepped to be part of Robbinsdale High's championship pedigree like his father before him, as well as his future boss, Vern Gagne. Through high school, Curt was he was an okay wrestler, but he lettered in both wrestling and football. Also in high school, Curt met his wife, Lenice, who he'd marry in 79, stay with for his entire life, and they had 4 kids, including WWE wrestler and Intercontinental Champion, just like his pops, Curtis Axel. You ever work with Curtis Axel?
We're gonna get into this eventually.
No,
Might as well.
and it's weird because people have asked me multiple times, like, did you ever get to work Curt Hennig? And I go,
you know the timeline?
Yeah, you know the timeline. How long do you think I've been wrestling? How long do you think I've been doing this? But I'm meaning that in the opposite way that Tommy Rich said it one time.
I'm not too old for this shit.
Perfect played some junior college football at Normandale, but the by God Blue Chippers football career ended there, and after that he would decide to hop into the family business. Aside from being around wrestling his entire life, and I'm sure getting a ton of pointers from his dad, Curt went to Vern Gagne's wrestling camp and also received training from Brad Riggins.
More farm training. Just train on that farm and you're fucking good. Throw bales of hay around and work out in the barn, and that's how it works.
Fun fact: you could feel free to cut this if you want, if it gets a little too lengthy. But did you know that comedian Julian McCullough is related to Vern Gagne?
Oh no!
Yeah, I think Vern is his uncle. If I'm not mistaken. I remember him talking about it, and he's actually been to the farm that had the ring in it.
Oh,
and
shit, man, that's cool.
He was talking about that, and the only thing I got out of is that Vern possibly had sex with his brother's wife. That's the only thing that's the only thing I really allegedly, because apparently
you gotta throw that in there. Come on.
The product of his brother and his wife's marriage produced a child that looked very much like Vern. But he did talk about like the farm and the barn and all that stuff with the ring inside of it. So we had a nice conversation about that.
That sounds wonderful.
Cool Curt Hennig began his career on January 30th, 1980 in the AWA, straight up looking like a Cabbage Patch doll.
Yeah, his hair, man, it's gorgeous.
Out the gates, he'd have matches against his trainer Brad Riggins, as well as Adrian Adonis, and also Nacho Barria, who apparently lost every single match of his entire career. It's under for life, Jake.
Mm-hmm. They got some stiff competition.
Jake's got the 10 DVD box set. Learning everything he can.
After about a year of working in Minnesota, Curt would go work for Vince Sr. in New York, working his first match in WWF against Johnny Rodz.
WWE Hall of Famer, baby.
He'd round out the rest of 81 working against the likes of Greg Valentine, Killer Khan, and Mr. Fuji. And I think Curt meeting Mr. Fuji must have been like when Obi-Wan met Luke.
Totally.
Like, the ribbing is strong with this one.
One time he filled up somebody's hotel bathtub with mice.
Oh.
And I was just wondering, where would you get hundreds of mice? I think that's the real question in that fucking rip. Just mice.
After his WWF run, Curt would start 1982 over in Portland, brother, a.k.a. Don Owens' NWA Pacific Northwest Territory. There, he teamed up with his dad and won the tag team titles. And the clip I saw of Larry the Axe talking about this, he was like the proudest papa of all time. In late 82, Curt would touch base back in AWA for just a minute, but then he would head back to the WWF. And for this run, the names he works with, like, they really jump up. You got Superstar Billy Graham, Eddie Gilbert, Don Morocco, Big John Studd, and on November 17th, he wrestled fucking Tiger Mask.
It is only on clips. There's only highlights on the WWE network and you get to see some of the glimpses. I mean, obviously every exchange is smart, athletic, lightning fast, but it's you only get a 3-minute clip, and it's one of those where it's just like, please give me more. But also check out the Eddie Gilbert match from Madison Square Garden, 11/21/82. Eddie, who was pretty much a brawler later in his days, but he could really mat wrestle, and it's two young dudes whipping ass.
And also, too, I believe there was a short run where they tagged together. So that's an interesting combination. Two second-generation wrestlers. Also, at that time, they were kind of probably seen as undersized, but obviously talented, because this is definitely like during the times of the Rene Goulets and Bruno Sammartino, just coming off that, and Pedro Morales, like big strapping guys, and to tag them together, it's like, oh, this is our fiery young babyface tag team that, people can get behind, but they're gonna get their ass whipped, but just they're gonna make a nice little comeback and good little hands in the ring. And of course, who else could you put Tiger Mask in the ring with?
Yeah.
Especially the roster that the WWF had at the time. I mean, they brought in Dynamite Kid specifically. They flew somebody from a different territory to come in just so Tiger Mask could have a good match, because he was their light heavyweight champion because of, at that time, the working relationship with New Japan. So it was a very short list of guys that they had on the roster that could have worked for Tiger Mask, and Curt was definitely one of them.
Vince is calling that match in that little clip, and he goes, he has a line, he goes, bet it's hot under that mask. I was like, thank you for having the same opinions on pro wrestling as my mom would, Vince. Like, what the fuck?
Oh, he's just going to be miserable under there.
What was it, the commentary? What a maneuver! 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 What a maneuver!
And a hold.
So if you're into, this era of wrestling and you think Curt versus Tiger Mask is super cool, in 83, Curt went back to Portland where he would get in the title picture, feuding over the Pacific Northwest heavyweight title with Dynamite fucking Kid. This is like a wrestling nerd's wet dream. But
there's no footage of singles matches.
Yeah, I don't know. I still probably need to look through the Michael Gratchner footage, because there is some Portland stuff in there, but I can't think of anything that pops directly in my head. I know we have some Curt Hennig Portland stuff about this time period, so there might be something that's out there floating around. But it's just seeing a lot of that Portland stuff is just lost forever, or sitting in Buddy Rose's wife's closet somewhere. Yeah. So.
There's a couple YouTube clips. Look up Dynamite Kid will murder Curt Hennig, cuts a promo on him. Dynamite Kid breaks Curt Hennig's neck, which is a 6-man match. Dynamite hits a tombstone on Curt that really does look fucking nasty. Curt sells the crap out of it. He's in the ring, not moving. All three guys perch up on the turnbuckles like vultures. It's a cool as hell visual. And then a brawl breaks out. And then yet again, Dynamite flies off the top rope and drops a knee onto the supposedly crippled Curt's neck. It's a fucking great angle, and it looks brutal. And some of the tag matches, you do get to see Dynamite and Curt go at it, and it's like Tiger Mask, man. They are so fast. It's, the cameras not being able to keep up with it, and they're on the same page, and it's just beautiful stuff. But there's no single matches that I could find anywhere on the internet. But man, you could tell they put on a show.
And also too, it's like two puzzle pieces coming together. Dynamite was always that guy that was very hard hitting, had no holes in his work whatsoever. Like, he was very believable, would knock the crap out of you for real. And then Curt, if you just like blew on him, he would oversell like a maniac. So it's like the two people just coming together that were just looking for each other. Oh, I like to knock the crap out of people and look like I'm really hitting them. Oh, really? Well, I like to give the most ridiculous over-the-top sell when you just even put a finger on me.
And then it cuts to the slow motion, and they both stare at each other and go, oh! They find each other in a romantic embrace. Two Portland things to check out. Curt versus the Assassin in a coal miner's glove match. If you're a wrestler and you're learning how to sell a gimmick punch like brass knuckles or something, when Curt gets the coal miner's glove and punches the Assassin, it's like a bomb goes off. Not only does the Assassin fly back, but Curt flies back. It seriously got a holy shit out of me. Must watch. And then in one of the weirdest matches I found, Curt versus Sheik Abdullah. It's an Iranian death match, 2 out of 3 falls. And the only reason it's an Iranian death match is Curt and the Sheik are tied up in opposite corners with rope, and then whoever gets out of their rope first can beat up the other one, but they both got out of the rope at the same time, and it turned into a normal match. It's really fucking stupid.
Kurt would finish up 83 in New Japan, where he'd be in all those crazy tag team combinations that they did at the time. My favorite was 12-10-83 Kurt with Bobby Duncombe and Andre the Giant losing to Antonio Inoki, Hulk Hogan, and Tatsumi Fujinami.
Yeah, I had that in my notes too. It was like, what the hell?
It's like a fucking Pro Bowl game or something.
Yeah, right?
Hennig returned to the AWA in 1984, and this is when Kurt's career just takes off. He had trained with some of the greats. He had some experience on the road in big matches. He'd said his prayers, taken his vitamins, done his push-ups, and from here, Kurt would go on a tear. Kurt would have matches against the likes of Nick Bockwinkel, Larry Zbyszko. He'd have tag matches with his dad against the Road Warriors, and he'd even hop over to All Japan as part of 85's Real World Tag League tournament. But Kurt's first big giant push would be tagging up with Big Scott Hall and beating Jimmy Garvin and Steve Regal on January 18th, 1986, winning the AWA World Tag Team Championships.
Don't you mean Mr. Excitement, Steve Regal? You don't have to put any respect on his name, but at least put the Mr. Excitement on there.
Kurt and Scott would defend those tag belts at the greatest show of all time, Wrestle Rock 86. Be there. At Wrestle Rock, Kurt and the Bat Guy faced the Long Riders, Bill and Scott Irwin, who look like Mountain Dew sommeliers. Kurt wins this match with that beautiful missile drop kick he did, and then gets attacked by a motorcycle boot. Scott and Kurt would chug along defending the belts until May, when they dropped them to Buddy Rose and Doug Sommers. From there, Kurt would get a few AWA title shots against Stan Hansen. He lost an NWA title shot to Ric Flair. But that November, Kurt would head to Las Vegas to face AWA champion Nick Bockwinkel in a 1-hour Broadway in a match that would put Curt Hennig on the pro wrestling map.
This is the first time I watched it. Jake, did you rewatch it, or you just remember from the old days? Or?
I just remember from the days. So you got to keep in mind with a lot of the stuff we talk about here, as somebody who trained to be a professional wrestler, and then you look back at wrestling footage, and when it comes down to I've got all the wrestling footage in the entire world to look at, whose matches I'm going to look at, Curt Hennig is at the top of the list. So yeah, I've seen clips of this match and multiple matches and multiple tag matches with Scott Hall, and it's amazing to put in context how early this was in his career, and for him to be this good. I mean, now granted, at this time, wrestling 4, 5, 6 years in the territorial system is a little bit different than wrestling 4, 5, 6 on the independent wrestling, because he's working 7 nights a week and probably twice on Saturday, twice on Sunday. So he got very good very fast, but just the talent is there, and especially being able to hang with someone like Flair and Bockwinkel at this period of time, at this early juncture of his career, is pretty incredible.
The second half of this Broadway really picks up in pace and brutality. About 3/4 of the way through, Kurt busts his head open on the ring post.
Yeah.
And then a bloody Curt Hennig, he would control the last 5 minutes, and he'd lock Nick Bockwinkel in the Indian Deathlock for the final minute. But Nick sweats it out and survives a time limit draw.
One thing I do like about this match is Kurt saves his drop kick till the 49-minute mark of the match, of how big or how differently moves meant back then. I think they save just a regular suplex for minute 57. I mean, and the crowd is just eating up every single spot.
I mean, imagine waiting 49 minutes for something that's gift file worthy. That would just be horrendous. I can't imagine the awful reviews you would get for something like that. So sorry, Nick Bockwinkel and Curt Hennig. I know you guys are the best to do it ever, but if you're not giving me a gift file within the first 20 minutes at least, come on, guys.
20 easily.
First off, anything Curt Hennig does is gift file worthy. And second of all, fight the patriarchy. I'm getting that over.
Okay. You didn't. Okay, we got to do it more though. We really got to put it over.
That's why I had that dynamite drop in to give you to slide that right in.
Alley-oop. Kurt would once again meet I can't say the word Nick. Kurt would once again meet Nick Bockwinkel for the AWA World Heavyweight title, this time at Super Clash on May 2nd, 1987. This time their match was 30 minutes-ish, and it's pretty even throughout. I guess that was the story they were trying to do. It's pretty evenly matched.
Yep.
However, number one contender for the winner of this match, Larry Zbyszko, is sitting ringside, and Larry would slip Kurt a foreign object, taking jobs away from American objects like guns. Curt decks Bockwinkel, who drops cold, and Curt gets the pin and wins the AWA title.
This is another problem with things. You're not getting the other side of the story if you listen to Larry after the match. He clearly went over to Curt and gave him some advice, and then Curt used that advice to punch him really hard.
Well, that foreign object allegedly was a roll of coins, which were Canadian coins, hence why it's a foreign object.
Oh,
so,
shit.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if you guys remember this, or after the match, this whole, clusterfuck breaks out.
Yeah, it's chaotic horseshit.
And they're like, he's not going to win the belt until we review the tape. We got to review it. And then, but apparently they reviewed it, saw that he decked him with a roll of coins, and just didn't care. What? Do you know what happened there?
This is AWA in '87. Do you want me to explain any of this goddamn shit?
Well, the thing that I read is the reason they did this stupid bullshit is because at the time Curt actually had a WWF offer a little bit earlier, and he was weighing his options about what to do, so they created this little window for him to make up his mind, and he finally decided to stay with AWA. I guess they promised him more and shit. And then it was like, all right, yeah, we watched the tape. We totally didn't see that, so here you go, man. And they awarded him the belt, no questions asked.
Curt would defend the belt the rest of 86 and all of 87 against the likes of Greg Gagne, Wahoo McDaniel, and Baron von Raschke.
He also would go to Japan and defend it against Tiger Mask 2. So he got them all in there. Tiger Mask 2, who some of you might know was Misawa, who would go on to be one of the All Japan gods. But Curt, I think it might be the earliest I've seen the perfect plex, but he hits the perfect plex on Misawa, and it's treated like another move, and the match gets DQ'd or some shit. But it's pretty interesting. Curt versus Misawa, which is another, if given the time, dream match. It's good shit to look up.
Curt held the AWA title for just over a year before losing it to Jerry Lawler on May 9th, 1988. Lawler said this was not only his favorite match with Curt, it was his favorite match of all time.
It's an incredible match, and you have Jackie Fargo as the referee, with his history.
Very strict referee.
Well, with that the history of that, and Fargo and Lawler, and making sure it goes right. And there's this beautiful moment where Curt takes a slingshot into the turnbuckle, and he hits the turnbuckle, and he does this turn that just I don't know how he does it. I don't know how he moves his body in a particular way, and it's just this incredible sequence into the finish. It's something that I've tried to repeat, and I physically can't do it. It's hard to describe because it's just once you see it, you're like, I don't even know how that happened. It's like a turn and then a face plant. You're basically flying in, and then you have to turn yourself somehow in midair. It's incredible. It's a great moment. It most certainly is. It's definitely one of the biggest moments in Jerry the King Lawler's career, and with me being such a fan of Jerry the King Lawler, and even the promos leading up to this, and Curt Hennig showing up on Memphis TV, destroying the set.
Oh my God, it's so fucking amazing.
Just screaming into the microphone, and
he beats up a Toyota dealership owner.
Yeah,
he beats the shit.
He goes completely nuts. He looks like a maniac and a madman. And just sets up for probably one of the most beautiful nights in Jerry the King Lawler's career. If you watch the TVs leading up to that, with Curt's performance, with Jerry's performance, and how they just build it to this, you knew something special was going to happen on that night, and it did. And Curt was a part of that magic.
After dropping the title, Curt was noticing the changing wrestling world. AWA had been long since raided by Vince and was failing. They had just put the belt on an older wrestler, a clear sign that they weren't quite planning for the future. And despite pressure from his dad and Vern to stay, Curt was like, I'm a head out. Is that meme still relevant this year?
Oh, the SpongeBob meme? It took me a minute. I think that's still floating around.
All right, cool. You're trying to be hip.
Yeah, especially when you say the things you just said.
Curt would have a meeting with Vincent Kennedy McMahon, and the story goes that Vince asked Curt what he did. What was he good at? Curt said he was great at everything, and that's when the Mr. Perfect gimmick was born, or they drew it out of a box. Both believable stories. Yeah,
and Terry Taylor obviously ended up with Red Rooster at the same time, and we've all heard that.
Who knows what the real fucking thing is?
Yeah, well, definitely not the box of gimmicks. That's definitely not true.
Process of elimination, that one's out.
I wasn't there, and I was 6 at the time, and I know it's false. So
now in WWF, Curt would hop on the house show loops. He'd do some TV spots as Mr. Perfect Curt Hennig, but soon he'd drop his real name and would be packaged as just Mr. Perfect with the help of those legendary vignettes.
So Mr. Perfect's vignettes started in 1988. And if anybody remembers a particular man named Bo Jackson and a series of Nike commercials called Bo Knows, where Bo Jackson knows how to do everything and he's good at everything. And those started in 89. So what I'm fucking saying is, I think it's pretty clear Nike are a bunch of thieves, and the only reason Bo Jackson has a career is because of Curt Hennig's Mr. Perfect vignettes. I think it's clear as fucking day.
Well, goddamn, pal. At the beginning of every broadcast, we put the innovators in sports entertainment. Do you think I put on there just for an accident of branding? Of course we are. We are the innovators of sports entertainment. We came up with those Bo Jackson vignettes. That's why we are the innovators in sports entertainment.
I will say his shooting form in the basketball segment was lacking.
He dribbles up the court like a theater kid forced in middle school gym to bring up the ball as a point guard. I mean, it might be a little cruel, but yeah, we roast the ones we love.
There's the golf one. I think it might have been the next series of them, but, you know, there's a funny story that Ken Patera told on a shoot interview one time about Curt, like back in the AWA. I guess, like, Ken Patera and a couple other guys, they wanted to go golfing, and they had an early morning tee time. For whatever reason, they were off on this particular day, and they're like, let's all go golfing, because it was during the summertime, and usually AWA didn't run a whole heck of a lot in the summertime because that's when people would be out doing shit. So you're not going to run a wrestling show where it's going to be indoors. Yeah. So they're like, all right, let's go golfing, and it was an early tee time, and Curt showed up smoking a joint with a beer in his hand and had dark sunglasses to cover how hungover he was.
Nice.
And Curt wasn't much of a golfer. Like, he's like, I've done it a couple times. We'll figure it out.
But I'm great.
And then, like, it might have been like Larry Zbyszko and Ken Patera, like guys that golf on a regular basis. And Larry, like, he'll go out golfing just about every day if possible. And supposedly Curt, who is smoking, drinking on every single hole and progressively getting more drunk, is progressively playing better than all the rest of them. And nobody can figure out, like, how is he doing this? Like,
fucking gimmick.
He should be asleep right now, but somehow he is still smoking a joint while, like, drinking profusely here at 7 a.m. He's probably continued to drink on from the night before, and he's out here just golfing like a madman.
I think shoot-wise, the football one's the most impressive. What, right? To throw yourself a touchdown pass.
I mean,
especially when you have a Minnesota Vikings player like watching, like, yeah, for cutaways, like, wow.
My favorite part is when he throws the ball and he waits a second and look at him like, watch this shit.
Yeah, it's so good. I think that's my favorite one.
Yeah. And then I sent Nick this, but there's a Vine of a 2014 high school football player who actually fucking does this. It's like a 40-yard pass. It looks legit. It might be special effects, but if he did, he got me. But it's pretty damn impressive.
And then I like that the pool one is at Vince McMahon's house, and the hilarious part of that is, like, can you just picture Vince McMahon playing pool? Like, there's no way he has enough patience for that. Unless it's like large bumper cars. Like, I don't see Vince McMahon like playing pool. Oh,
we got whack-a-mole over here.
Rack 'em up, Pat. We're playing old English rules on this one. Like, I feel like a pool table only exists in Vince McMahon's house, so when people put quarters on the table, he can just knock them off. Yeah. Like Harley Race.
I wanted to go real quick, hit Curt's first ever match. Even at very first match, Bobby Heenan is already in love with him. And he says, his voice is even perfect. It has a nice melodious tone. And I'd never heard that phrase before. And this was a good one. Gorilla, when Curt hits the perfect plex, Gorilla goes, oh, cradle suplex. He stole that from the original King, I think, and just totally buries Curt with his finishing move. And I don't know if we talked about it, but Harley Race basically did the perfect plex, and Curt attributes getting that finisher from Harley.
I told that motherfucker, if you want a goddamn finisher, you get it from the greatest wrestler on God's green earth.
So Mr. Perfect would make his pay-per-view debut at 88 Survivor Series as Jim Duggan, Jake Roberts, Ken Patera, Tito Santana, and Scott Casey would take on Curt with Andre the Giant, Rick Rude, Dino Bravo, and Harley Race. Holy shit, we have covered this entire team.
I had that in my notes too, and I kind of cried.
Yeah.
Sorry, real quick. Who the fuck is Scott Casey?
Show fucking Scott Casey a little goddamn respect.
This 88 Survivor Series match itself is part of that brutal 88 card that's just tough to get through. This is the best match on it, though. Andre takes the sacrificial DQ by choking the fuck out of Jake Roberts.
It's hilarious.
Perfect gets the win and the pin over Jake the Snake, surviving the match with good old episode 2 of Tim Bell Pot. Dino, bravo.
I mean, that's a great heel pin for the win. You pin a guy who just got choked to death by Andre the Giant.
This match is kind of important because this is Curt rubbing shoulders with all these like mega star, mega heels, and I'm sure that did a lot of good for his new heelish image.
Yeah, legitimized him would be the word that I believe would be used to describe what they did with Curt on this Survivor Series.
Curt would continue staying perfect on TV, beating Mick Carters like Coco Beware, the Red Rooster, Jimmy Snuka, and Bret Hart. He was eliminated from his first Royal Rumble by Hogan, and then he'd have his first WrestleMania match at WrestleMania 5. At WrestleMania 5, Mr. Perfect would rock his signature singlet, taking on the Blue Blazer from parts unknown Alberta, Canada.
It's another one of those, like, if they had more time, this would have been amazing.
Yeah, I wish they would have gave him like 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's Owens doing a bunch of cool stuff, and obviously Curt selling his ass off for him. My real highlight was when the beginning of the match, I think it's Gorilla or whoever's like, he looks perfect, and as soon as he says that, Curt stumbles down the step to the ring. It's comic.
But yeah, it's just one of the things where you just gotta get him on the card. They're here, get him on the card.
Yeah.
Perfect just needs a win, because we're continuing this whole perfect streak. So like, let's get him on the card. Let's get him a win. Let's get him a win on pay-per-view. Let's get him a win on WrestleMania. Owen's going to make him look good. Owen's going to do a couple things. They're going to know how to do this. Just get him on the card.
Next, Curt stopped at SummerSlam 89 and beat the Red Rooster in just over 3 minutes. But by Survivor Series 89, Curt had that good-ass intro music. He was pretty damn over as a heel, and he put a bow on his first year by being part of Rick Rude's Survivor Series team to take on Roddy Piper's team.
And just advice to any jobbers that are wrestling Curt on Wrestling Challenge or Superstars, don't ever go for a back body drop around the 85-second mark of the match, because when you lean down, you're getting perfect plex, so don't fucking do that. You didn't learn from any of the tape you watched to prepare, so please quit.
89 Survivor Series is also kind of an important match because, first of all, Mr. Perfect works like the entire thing and just takes a beating, but he ends up being the sole survivor and gets a clean pin on Jimmy Snuka. Curt needed to look extra strong because at this point he was one of, if not the most over heel in the company, which meant he was about to feud with Hulk Hard R Hogan.
You're like, there's no R in Hogan.
Oh.
There's a lot of R's in Terry.
Terry. That's it.
Yeah, Terry.
That's what Nick meant.
Yeah.
Now that October, Mr. Perfect had become on-screen pals with the genius Lanny Poffo, who would take kind of a manager role for Curt.
You know, this is back in the day when being an intellectual genius meant you could write poetry that rhymes. So, hey, you can do that shit, you're a fucking genius.
I am the genius. I am world renowned.
One clip you have to look up is Mr. Perfect and the Genius on Regis and Kathy Lee. There's a moment where Regis wonders about the state of the relationship or friendship between the Genius and Mr. Perfect, and he remarks to the Genius about how the Genius is looking at Perfect. He's like, look at the way he's looking at him. And the Genius has a beat. And he actually says, Regis, I am a monogamous heterosexual. Are you questioning? And then Regis immediately jumps in, no, I'm not questioning anything. And it's just this moment of just the Genius like, did Regis just call me gay on the morning show? And Curt just blows by it, treats it like nothing, just keeps doing his thing. It's beautiful.
I could just picture Regis like, so let me tell you, perfect, genius. Yeah, look at each other. Yeah, making like a good couple right here. I like what's going on here. Yeah, holding hands, possibly, maybe hanging out, maybe long drives. What do you got going on here? Tell me about it. I'm Regis. Talk to me now. Talk to me. I'm Regis.
It's not that far off.
Kayfabe-wise, 2 days after Survivor Series, November 25th, Curt would be in Lanny's corner as he took on Hulk Hogan on Saturday night's main event. It was actually filmed about a month earlier, but they lied about it, and it's stuff like this that give conspiracy theorists the feel in their they're not really hitting each other argument. Curt walks out about halfway through the match, and when the ref isn't looking, Curt clocks Hulk with the title belt, causing him to get counted out, giving the win to the Genius. Then Genius and Perfect still the WWF Championship, and at the end of the show, Perfect destroys the title belt. Then Curt issues a challenge and tells Hulk that he's going to give him the perfect defeat.
Not only does he destroy the belt with a hammer, but like the Genius is doing like a can-can dance
And
in the
he's singing
background.
opera the whole fucking time.
Just to be weird, because I'm
It's
the
like-
Genius, and I'm also weird. When you're Genius, you're just weird. You wear this long toga type robe, and just
You're an eccentric motherfucker.
yeah.
And we didn't bring it up. There's one of the vignettes. I think it's one of the golfing one. Kurt hits a really good drive, and then the Genius just does a backflip for the fucking reason. It's like, okay.
Because that's what monogamous straight men do. Did you know that, Michael?
Yeah, I like how he worked in the monogamous part, too.
Next up for Mr. Perfect would be 1990's Royal Rumble. And 90's Royal Rumble is best remembered for the first ever showdown between Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan, which would overshadow the big showdown between Mr. Perfect and Hogan, both happening during the actual Rumble match. Mr. Perfect would enter at number 30, would go straight for Hulk, and the final four would end up being Hercules, Rick Rude, Perfect, and Hogan. Rude takes out Hercules, leaving the Robbinsdale boys to double-team Hulkster. However, Hulk ducks a Rick Rude clothesline, causing Rick to clock Perfect, sending him over onto the apron. Hulk then whips Rude into the rope that Perfect is holding down, trying to get up. Rick goes over, leaving Perfect and Hogan to go one-on-one. And for still a newish character in the WWF, this is a pretty big moment for him.
Just the fact that Perfect gets number 30, I love. Just because he gets the perfect number. It's that booking to the gimmick where it's like, when $1 Million Man got got number 30 and one of them because he obviously paid everybody off. Yeah. It's like the perfect number. I love that goofy little shit.
Eventually, Hogan eats a perfect plex, but right away hulks up, chunks Curt out. LOL, Cena wins.
Can we talk about Curt doing the perfect plex at a Royal Rumble?
And then holding the bridge.
I mean, I know it still gets a pop, but yeah, okay.
About a week later, they aired Saturday Night's Main Event 25, January 27th, 1990. Mr. Perfect and the Genius would take on Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior, and Hulk Hogan did a small package during this match, so you know it's good.
It's like Hogan in Japan.
Perfect looked super strong again against Hulk Hogan. But after this match, we get another big Warrior and Hulk Hogan scuffle, which again overshadowed anything Mr. Perfect hoped to do at this point in his career.
And I think this match is the origin moment of the Ultimate Warrior's homophobia, because there's a moment where the Genius celebrates and he's dancing around all effeminate and stuff, and there's this moment where Warrior just stares at him. And you know, it's like it built right there. It was festering and it just started to grow right in that moment.
You want to know a fucking underrated spot in this match? There's that big moment where Curt does the perfect plex, and then he stops the count and then tags in. Right. He's holding the fucking perfect plex and then grabs the referee's hand to stop the count. I was like, holy fuck, man, that is insane.
And then he holds up one of his legs, too, just to show off.
It was one of the coolest things, and then no one ever brings that up.
It is fucking gorgeous.
Now we get into Mr. Perfect's first ever singles loss, which is kind of confusing and also kind of wasted. Mr. Perfect did take some losses at house shows. He even took some pins, but this is pre-internet days, and us dumb marks were none the wiser. So his first ever loss on the books would be against Ultimate Warrior, a match that aired on the MSG network. And this is a fun match. Perfect puts on a bumping clinic as always. He makes Warrior look great. Eventually eats the dreaded press slam splash combo and loses. This match happened March 19th, 1990, but it wouldn't actually be broadcast until after April 1st, WrestleMania 6.
According even to WWE now, like on Curt's DVD, the match against him and Terry Taylor has Mick Foley and Michael Cole commentating, and they've started the storyline that the Warrior is Mr. Perfect's first loss. So they're rewriting history, and they don't care about Brutus, because even now they think it's
because he's Brutus, the fucking barber beefcake. All right, once you become the fucking Zodiac, you're dead to us.
So at WrestleMania 6, Perfect would take on Brudeye, who Perfect had attacked after Beefcake's Royal Rumble match against the Genius to kind of set up the feud. Perfect makes Brutus look like Bucks, but in the end, Mr. Perfect would lose his first pay-per-view match to Brutus, the barber Beefcake, right in front of goddamn Mary Tyler Moore, who was in attendance. So they didn't make a huge deal out of losing to Brutus, since they already had a show in the can that was going to credit Warrior, which they also kind of didn't make that big of a deal about him losing. And letting Warrior break the streak was kind of wasted too, because at this point, how more over could the Ultimate Warrior fucking be? Like,
why not do that match on a pay-per-view, or Hogan on a pay-per-view, or at least a Saturday night's main event?
Yeah, right.
I don't know.
Listen, we're not too far removed from Brutus and the No Holds Barred Christmas, okay? Like, he stood side by side with Hulk Hogan in a cage match against Zeus and the Macho King.
It's true. It's true.
I mean, he's white hot at this time. He's hot as Brutus. Like, if you're going to lose to any incarnation in Brutus the Barber Beefcake at any point in his career, it has to be this time at WrestleMania 6. He ain't. I mean, it's not like he lost to Brutus the Barber Beefcake in WCW in 1999. Like,
oh my God. I want to give it up to Nick for not. I thought you were going to be a lot more irate and maybe unhinged talking about that segment. So
I deleted a lot of words that would have ended this podcast and just decided to just deliver the information.
Yeah,
and as legend goes, Brutus, was the weed carrier for Hulk. WrestleMania 6 took place in Toronto, so he had to bring a WrestleMania size amount of marijuana across the border, and you have to get some sort of like reward for that.
I guess that's true.
So, like, come on, for one of the biggest wrestling matches in Hulk Hogan's career, which is to put over the Ultimate Warrior. So it's all trickled down on economics.
So much conspiracy thinking. I love it.
Perfect's next big match would be finally getting a one-on-one meeting with Hulk Hogan on the April 28th Saturday night main event, number 26, from Austin, Texas. So, of course, Vince and Jesse the Body start the show indoors riding fucking horses.
That's great.
Again, Perfect sells his ass off. He eventually hits Hulk with the Perfect Plex, but he hulks up, big boot, leg drop, and Perfect takes his third loss on TV in about a month.
And I also like to point out, anytime someone kicks out of the Perfect Plex, that's the first time anyone's ever kicked out of the Perfect Plex. Every time.
Following this loss to Hulk, Perfect would ditch the Genius, but after taking all these losses back to back to back, they had to do something to build Mr. Perfect back up. You can't walk around calling yourself perfect after losing a bunch of matches, because then you're just Chael Sonnen. That's for you, Micah.
I mean, if Chael roasts us on his thing for 2 minutes, that's totally worth the eyes on us, but I doubt that.
So, as you know, Warrior won the WWF title at WrestleMania 6, so he had to drop the IC belt. So, in May of 1990, WWF held a tournament to crown a new champion. Mr. Perfect would beat Jimmy Snuka in the quarterfinals on May 5th.
Good.
And then beat two-time Intercontinental Champion Tito Santana in the finals on May 19th on an episode of Superstars.
If you're going to do the Jesse Ventura voice, you've got to call him Chico Santana. You just can't go
You
Tito
had it
Santana.
in the notes, Nick, but you're not going to say it on the podcast.
Yeah,
What the
like you can't do the Jesse voice and then just be like, no,
Chico Santana.
I'm going to be politically correct on this one.
You're just quoting someone. One thing I love about this match, it's the little things, but there's a hammerlock reversal exchange that probably goes 3 deep each, and it's so lightning quick. It was another, holy shit, this is, it gives you, I forgot how good Tito was, I guess. I need to watch more Tito, but Curt and his hammerlock exchange, damn.
And if I'm not mistaken in this match, when they awarded the belt to him, didn't they award him like the tag team title belt?
I didn't pick up on that.
Because they didn't have the IC belt.
Because they didn't have the IC belt. I think that's the
that,
version that I've
so.
seen on Coliseum Video. Because I think I have it on one of the Coliseum videos that I have on the shelf over there.
Yeah.
And I think that was the case, that they didn't have the IC belt, so they had
Yeah, that's good.
the tag belt, which is also what they did when Ric Flair was told that he couldn't hold up the NWA big gold belt anymore. Is they just had him walk out with the one of the tag belts, and they blurred it out, but you can clearly see it's the tag belt side plates on it, because they wanted to continue that angle of the real world's champion, but they couldn't put the belt on TV anymore, so they had the blot, but you can clearly see it's a tag belt. So they also need a belt to fill in for this Intercontinental belt. It's like, yeah, just use the tag belt, which goes to show, it makes a lot of sense how little WWF, WWE has cared about tag team wrestling over the years. They're like, yeah, we just need something that looks like a belt. Yeah, put the tag belts on. I know people are fighting over this belt, and we have Tully, Arn, Demolition, the Rockers, Hart Foundation, some of the best tag teams of all time, and I know they're fighting for this belt, but just throw it out there. We just need a prop. We need a prop.
If we lose the belt, we'll just get some cardboard and magic markers and fucking make a new one.
Yeah, Demolition Smash. I know the tag belt means a lot to you, but can I have it real quick? We need it for the next segment, okay? We need a bar. We just need a belt. We just need a belt.
So about 3/4 of the way through the Tito match, Bobby Heenan would come down to the ring, and after Perfect wins, he grabs the mic. He announces that not only do you have a perfect Intercontinental Champion, he has the perfect manager, Bobby the Brain Heenan.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorite pairings ever. Like, both are killers on the mic, both are hilarious, both have great minds for wrestling, and as perfect was, as perfect as Kurt was, as good as Perfect was on the mic.
As perfect as this sentence is going.
As all right as he is.
He wasn't quite up there with like a Rick Rude, so I don't mind him having a mouthpiece to share the spotlight with. From here, Kurt would roll through some job guys on Wrestling Challenge and Superstars, and he'd even beat Tito in a rematch on Saturday night's Main Event 27.
And one of the best rewatching Kurt stuff, there's a moment during this match where Perfect has Tito in just a normal chin lock. Heenan, right next to the mic, right next to the camera, blatantly screams to Kurt, "You want to choke him?" I think Kurt nods, but then Heenan immediately distracts Earl Hebner, and then Mr. Perfect immediately begins choking Tito Santana. And it's just Bobby at his most heelish and just cheating blatantly in front of the cameras and not giving a shit. It's beautiful heel work.
At 1990's SummerSlam, Kurt was supposed to have another match with Brutus the Barber, but he got hurt. And I believe this is when he got his face all smashed up from the jet ski accident. Was it jet ski?
It was hang glide, or no.
Parasailing.
Yes.
Okay.
That just standing on the beach and you're going to catch somebody coming in at the speed of fucking light with a kneecap just right to your face.
Just getting your whole face caved in, Does that make you feel better, Nick?
Yeah,
Kurt
yeah.
the Brutus one, you got Kurt's first win.
So Brutus had to be replaced, and in stepped the Texas Tornado, Kerry Von Erich. They have a very short 5-minute match. Kurt gets slingshotted into the corner, goes over and hits the pole, which is like a favorite spot of his. And Kerry hits him with the claw and the tornado punch. 1, 2, 3.
I find myself now, after learning about Kerry, just this whole match, I'm just staring at his right foot the whole fucking time and just like seeing if I can see like it move, or I couldn't really notice it. If people don't know, Kerry had gotten a motorcycle accident and gotten his right foot amputated, or after it got injured and then he neglected it and then it got amputated. But it's pretty much all his tornado matches, he has no real right foot, right? Yeah. It's way past that.
I think it's funny that you're looking at his foot. I'm looking at his eyes to see how fucked up he is. That's usually my go-to when I see a Kerry Von Erich match. How fucked up is he? Like every Survivor Series, he's always in the wrong. Like he's always like in the way. If you watch any,
sorry, man, sorry.
Yeah, pretty much every Survivor Series match you ever see of Kerry Von Erich, he's in the fucking way. I don't know how anybody can be that much in the fucking way. Like I get it. Like people are running around, but like Kerry, just stay in the fucking corner. Yep. Like if you know you're in the way every single fucking year of those things, stop being in the fucking way and just.
It's hard when you have no memory.
Yeah. And like, I love Kerry, and like I loved Kerry Von Erich. I loved the Texas Tornado this time so much. In fact, some kid smarted off to me at Mark Street's birthday party in grade school. And I remember, like, wrestling was on, and we were watching wrestling, and I just saw, like, the Texas Tornado do that leg sweep that he does.
Oh, yeah.
And fucking Chris Edwards was just mouthing off to me, and I'm like, fuck this. And I did this fucking Texas Tornado leg sweep on him.
Oh, Jesus.
And he fucking took the best bump in the fucking world. Like, completely took him out legit and took, like, a back bump in the middle of Mark Street's, like, living room. It was the greatest, like, athletic achievement of my entire life. And I was a Division I scholarship athlete.
You peaked too early, Jake.
Yeah.
So after dropping the title, Kurt would keep on feuding with the Tornado. They'd stop off at Survivor Series, where Kurt was a team captain with Demolition's axe crush and smash, looking like a bunch of BDSM dads. They would lose to the Warriors of Ultimate Warrior, Texas Tornado, and LOD.
Get it? They're all warriors. Get it?
Oh, I
the
do
modern
now.
day
Fuck.
warrior. Get it? Get it? Road warriors. Get it? Please get it. Get it.
I'm gonna scream it till you do.
Was Shane McMahon a ref for this?
I saw your note, but I forgot to look when I watched it,
Yeah, he
and
should
I
be.
wasn't gonna watch it again.
He's doing ref stuff at this time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck? I didn't know
I think he's also in 89 as well.
Okay.
Jesus.
Yeah, he's definitely around and doing ref stuff at this time.
This was one thing that as much as they were pushing Curt, it was like some Survivor Series, he got the final pin and his team won. And in this one, he at least put on a good showing against Warrior. I forgot how much they were just, pushing him in every avenue of everything.
Perfect would keep chasing Kerry for the belt, first losing at November 24th's MSG Network show before facing him again on December 15th's Superstars. So before this match, Ted DiBiase had paid off the Fink to be the special guest ring announcer.
Ooh.
And since there's no history of millionaires paying off WWF officials to be ring announcers, something was up. What was up? Ted's foot up Kerry's ass. Texas Tornado had slighted Ted on an episode of Brother Love, so the $1 Million Man would interfere in this match like 3 different times.
Can you tell me why he couldn't just come out to be a commentator and do the same
I
thing? Why did he have to pay to be the guest ring announcer?
Because he's the $1 Million Man.
He needs to manage his money better.
So Earl Hebner takes a fucking brutal ref bump in this. I thought he died. Ted runs in while Tornado has Mr. Perfect covered. Ted smashes him with the belt. Curt then hits Tornado with a perfect plex, and for the second time became the Intercontinental Champion.
But Ted does get to, he does fulfill his duties as guest ring announcer and announces Mr. Perfect as the new Intercontinental Champion to throw on the end there.
Rolling into 1991, Curt would enter the Royal Rumble at 23 and get tossed by the Bulldog. He'd face Texas Tornado in a rematch on Superstars February 2nd, where he lost by countout, keeping the belt. Perfect would make his next big title defense against the Big Boss Man at WrestleMania 7, and this is low-key one of my favorite Perfect and Boss Man matches.
It's really damn good. I'm a big fan of the Rodney King references in the pre-match promos, where basically Heenan says, you want to see some revenge on some cops? Then watch Mr. Perfect beat the shit out of the Big Boss Man. Like, whoa, Heenan, that is amazing.
That perked me up on my couch. I was like,
oh,
whoa.
yeah, what's this now?
And he goes, also, too, let me tell you about Ethiopia. But yeah, Boss Man and Perfect were actually very good friends and very excited about this match. And that's when you're a wrestler and you're wrestling somebody who's your friend, you get very excited about it. And you start coming up with spots and do things.
We can do this, we can do this.
And for someone like Curt, who's already unselfish as he is and a tremendous performer, getting in there with his friend who's also very much a tremendous performer and unselfish as well. I mean, that's what part of the thing that makes it work so well. Sometimes, as we'll probably discuss later in this podcast, somebody who's your good friend, you don't always have the great match with, but in this case, it most certainly is true. Also, side note, if there's anything I want to do in professional wrestling, of all the things that I've done, the one thing that I would love to do the most in this world is have James Drake, J.D. Drake, dress up like the Big Boss Man. I can't tell you.
He would crush that. That is perfect for him.
I've solely want to book a costume show solely just for that fucking purpose. I feel like that needs to happen in this fucking world at some point in time.
That's made for him.
Dude, you know how around Halloween every year there's a lot of cities do deck comics. They'll dress up, they'll do bits like them. If you put on a wrestling show like that, that would be fucking awesome.
Has that been
just
done
solely
before?
for James Drake to dress up like the Big Boss Man.
Yeah, literally, yeah. Book him for that.
Has that been done before?
We could do the 10 Bell Pod Dead Wrestler show. That would be a whole thing. We should talk about this off air.
Yeah, we are.
Is that just us getting sued into?
You would have to call him the large boss guy or something, but
he's still coming out from Cobb County,
yeah,
Georgia.
yeah.
He's still coming out the same music. It's still happening.
Jake, just real quick, Jake spoke on being friends and knowing each other, knowing each other's ring work. There's a great moment where Perfect does his little, he gets tossed and he does his backwards slide out of the ring where he tries to get out, but he crouches himself. And you can tell he's not going to get there unless he clearly pushes himself way too much. And Ray realizes Kurt's kind of in a bad spot, and he immediately pops out of the ring, grabs Kurt's legs, and jams him into the ring post to get the crotch chop. But it shows one wrestler knowing another wrestler and covering for them immediately so that the business doesn't look bad. Ray especially impressed the shit out of me, recognizing that moment in a split second and fixing it.
Right as this match was about to jump next level, like all-time great 5-star shit, they send out Barbarian and Haku to attack Big Boss Man and get Curt DQ'd.
Yep, the ending's kind of blah, but yeah, match is fantastic.
From here, Curt stayed on the house show loops and kept crushing cans on Superstars tapings. By June, Mr. Perfect was starting a feud with the British Bulldog, but this is when he suffered a back injury, the back injury that would haunt Curt Hennig for the rest of his career. Apparently, he got injured because the turnbuckles weren't adjusted correctly. Have you ever hit a corner where the turnbuckles weren't adjusted right?
It can happen, like if it's off center, or if like the padding isn't like on correctly, if it's like a corner. It all really depends, and that's why like it's very important. Like you see sometimes the referee like come in and check the turnbuckle pads and kind of readjust them. You know, that's just not the referee doing bullshit, because sometimes the referee is the one that helps set up the ring, and he might notice something's not right with the corner. And sometimes as a wrestler, like something will happen mid-match and you won't see it and you won't recognize it, and nobody will recognize it until like, ooh, that's a little weird, or oh, the spot in the ring is a little rough, or ooh, we got to pay attention to this board kind of moved, or you know, if it's off center a little bit, like that's something that happens from time to time.
No matter how he got hurt, Perfect suffered a broken tailbone and bulged disc.
Oh, I didn't know it was that. Jesus.
Forcing him to retire from professional wrestling. But he was still Intercontinental Champion. That belt had to get dropped. So Perfect pushed through. He made short wrestling challenge and Superstars tapings in July, right before SummerSlam, August 26, 1991, when Mr. Perfect would face Bret Hart in Madison Square Garden. This match is, pardon the pun, fucking perfect.
Yeah.
And remember, he did it with a career-ending injury. He worked through unimaginable pain just to give Bret Hart the biggest break in his career at this point.
Almost broke his fucking back with the sharpshooter, like leaning all the way back the way he did with all the weight. Like that's
what threw me off, because the ending is so like he doesn't even cinch it in before Hebner calls for the bell, which always felt like but then he still kind of hits it, and I don't know.
I think
it always feels a little off.
I think that's probably Hebner recognizing Kurt's hurt. You know, I'm gonna give it a quick. You know, ring as fast as possible. But I can imagine Curt, you know, and that's the thing about like back injuries. Like I've had a dinged up back before and like not been able to move. But then once you get out there and you start like warming up a little bit, you start doing a couple spots, you start feeling a little bit better, you get in the movement, and then when you know you're kind of fucked up and you don't know like how you're going to feel afterwards, and you know this is a big moment and you're trying to put somebody over, sometimes you get that adrenaline flowing, and I could probably picture Curt going like, "Cinch it in, motherfucker," like screaming like real hard. But then like the person who's not probably feeling as much adrenaline as the wrestlers, the referee who's recognizing like, hey, this guy's got a fucked up back, I'm going to ring it as fast as possible. Or maybe even Curt before the match, or even Bret before the match, like, hey, make sure you ring it pretty quick on the sharpshooter, he's got a fucked up back. But then he gets out there and he's like, cinch it in, motherfucker. Like, you know, like, bring it, because he's got all that adrenaline going. And if you know you're going to be done for a while, you want to make sure that this one looks as good as possible. So it could have been a situation like that. They probably told him ahead of time, like, hey man, just maybe ring it a little fast because I'm pretty fucked up. But then you get out there and you get moving, you get loosened up, and then of course you get to the back and you're like, what the fuck did I do?
I gotta say, the best hair pull spots exchanges in history. I mean, the way they wrench it and the way they throw it, it feels like shoot hair pulls. Also, as good as Bret and Perfect are, you got to put over the commentating on this match, because Heenan, Gorilla, and Piper, them combined with the crowd, it's one of the most exciting, urgent, oh shit, what's going to happen next combinations of the crowd, the commentators, and the wrestlers that I can remember. When I rewatched this, I didn't remember it being this good.
Well, and the tearing of the singlet's also kind of symbolic. Like he knows he's going to be on the shelf for a while, and he's just like, fuck it, just fucking tear all this shit to fucking shreds. It doesn't fucking matter. Fuck this singlet. I'm not going to be wearing this for a while. Fuck it, you know. And just if you're going to put somebody over, fucking go all out. And that's what he did.
One thing for all wrestling nerds that like to see something pretty interesting, there are 2 house shows recorded of Brett and Curt, 4/23/89 and 4/24/89. It's a little bit earlier, but it's 2 house show matches. It's kind of like, you know, you go see a comedian one night and you see him working on his stuff, and then you see him the next night and he kind of tinkers it and he messes with it and he plays with his art. And you get to see these 2 dudes in back-to-back nights doing house shows, just trying out this match that they have worked on and seeing the slight adjustments. Another nerd shit, Brett dodges a drop toe hold better than I have ever seen in my life. It's the best I've ever seen that spot executed. And you get commentary on both, and it's just cool to see 2 artists playing with their work.
Was it the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be dodging of a drop toe hold?
Hell yeah, alley-oop.
SummerSlam 91 would be Mr. Perfect's last match for well over a year. He'd cash in on his Lloyds of London insurance policy and then spend the rest of 91 and the majority of 92 rehabbing. And that is where we will pick up on Mr. Perfect Part Dos. Thanks for listening to this episode of 10 Bell Pod. Thanks for everyone giving money to our Patreon. Support us for free by leaving us a rating and a review to help trick those goddamn algorithms. Check out Six Squirrel Studios for all your podcast sound and distribution needs. Find us on social media at 10 Bell Pod. Jake is Man Scout Manning on all the things. Micah is JTrotter27 on Twitter. I'm Nicolessa on all the social medias except for Facebook, because I will not bend the knee to the reptilians that promote unfact-checked memes to control us.
Keep going.
Fight the patriarchy.
This is the living legend, not Dracula. I promise you, that this is Bruno San Martino, the man who is synonymous with Madison Square Garden, not that steroid-pushing Vince McMahon. And speaking of guys who don't push steroids, guys who are on the up and up, are the 10 Bell Pod crew. So make sure you donate to their Patreon at 10 Bell Pod at Patreon. You can give $1, you can give $2, you can give $3. There are different tiers on patreon.com// I'm not aware. All I know is I held the belt for a very long time.